Good evening and welcome to the work session for the Village of Pleasantville Board of Trustees. Today is June 14th, 2021. We have a bunch of items on our work session agenda, but the first of them is a presentation by Trustee Nicole Asquith on the subject of leaf blowers. That has been an ongoing discussion at various points for a good long while. We did a survey that Nicole will update us on. What gets presented tonight will be recorded. Folks obviously can watch it, and then we'll schedule an event where folks who have had a chance to consider what Nicole said, including the rest of the board, can weigh in on it. I'm not certain that tonight is the night for that, but I know there are a bunch of people who are watching who will be interested in this subject. So take it away, Nicole.
Thank you, Peter. Just to be clear, and this is a chance for me to sort of report back to the rest of the Board of Trustees about the feedback that we've gotten. They've had a chance to kind of see it in bits and pieces, but I wanted to give a sort of overall view and then make some suggestions for where to go from here. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. All right, is it sharing now? Oh, no. All right, now do you see it? Yes? Okay. All right, I'm going to play. Okay. All right, so the fairly straightforward. I'm going to give an overview of the feedback that we've received and suggest where to go from there. So I wanted to start by saying we've had sort of three ways to receive feedback from the public so far. One is a leaf blower forum that was held in October of last year that was attended by quite a few people, where we got quite a bit of feedback, and I for one had several takeaways from that I found to be helpful. We've also had a dedicated email open since last fall, and I will refer to that later on, and then also the survey that Peter alluded to earlier. So I'm going to start now. So I'm not going to give you guys information on every piece of the survey, but the pieces that I thought were kind of the most relevant. So we started by asking, do you live in the Village of Pleasantville? And we asked for a name and address. Some people found that off-putting, but the motivation behind that was we really wanted to hear specifically from residents. So we didn't want, for this particular survey, information from people who are outside of the community. So we asked about, what their relationship is to their yard care. The majority said they cared for their own yard. That was consistent with what we saw in the forum that we held in the fall as well. A lot of the people who had concerns about leaf blowers at the time were people who do their own yard work and own their own leaf blowers. So as you see, a majority said they own a leaf blower, and a majority of those were electric. So of the people who answered the survey, roughly a third own an electric powered leaf blower. The screen sharing makes it so I can't see what I'm saying. So the proposal that the Conservation Advisory Council had given us at the beginning of the fall was to have a seasonal regulation where leaf blowers would be allowed for fall and spring cleanup, but not during the summer time. A majority who answered the survey were against that. Contrast that by the email responses in which we got 29 who were against any kind of regulation. Wait, let me see if I can, move this so I can actually see my own slides. Oh, my mouse is not working. Okay. And 49, I think that says who were in favor of regulation. So that's everything from we want you to ban leaf blowers to, we would just like to see fewer leaf blowers or only electric leaf blowers. It was sort of all over the map. And then there were 17 responses that we got that were open to some kind of regulation, but were mostly about proposing some sort of compromise, which I found sort of reassuring that some people are trying to figure out how to find nice middle ground. This question, so a lot of the questions that we asked were sort of testing the water, because we figured, you know, there are different ways that we can go with this. Of the municipalities in Westchester, and there are a majority that have some kind of regulation on leaf blowers, there are different kinds of regulations. So one question we want to know is, would you be interested in transitioning from gas-powered and electric to only electric? And a majority were interested in that. So a few remarks. There are a lot of things to say about the feedback that we got, but a couple that I wanted to point out. One is that the majority of the complaints about leaf blowers that we got were about noise. Noise seeming to be the biggest problem that people associate with leaf blowers. And in the comments that we received, of which we got quite a few, there were a number that talked about, you know, leaf blowers ruining their quality of life, the problem of not being able to enjoy a quiet afternoon on the weekend, and so on. Sort of a piece with this is the fact that the effect of leaf blowers seems to vary tremendously, depending on a number of factors. One may be subjective. You know, people say, one person says, I don't feel strongly about leaf blowers one way or the other. We hear the noise, but it's tolerable. And a few people who said, it's so bad, it makes me want to move away from Pleasantville. But clearly from the feedback we got, it makes a big difference where you live. You know, if you live in a cul-de-sac where everybody manages their own yards, you're not going to feel the impact in the same way if you live in a neighborhood where there are a lot of landscape companies coming in with multiple leaf blowers at the same time. And then, you know, we heard from a father of a special needs child who is, you know, particularly adversely affected. So there are individual reasons why people are affected as well. Okay, so this is the proposal, and I can, you know, respond more about why I came to this conclusion, but this is the proposal that I thought I would make for a kind of middle ground that would be some regulation, but a more moderate regulation than what we were originally considering. And that would be to have a seasonal ban on gas-powered leaf blowers roughly from May 15th to the 1st of October. So that extends the period on both ends in the spring and the fall a little bit. It would allow for all types of leaf blowers during fall and spring cleanup periods, and it would allow homeowners to use electric leaf blowers during the summer for odd jobs. It would give some relief to residents who are bothered by leaf blowers during the summer month, slightly lessen our carbon footprint, and has the potential to substantially improve air quality during the summer months when the temperatures are the hottest and that impact is the most strongly felt. And then I wanted to make one other recommendation. I wanted to keep things simple, so my emphasis is on the last proposal. But I also noticed there were a couple questions in the survey about the idea of a quiet time. Some of the feedback we got said, well, why are you singling out leaf blowers? You know, there are so many other things that cause noise. Lawnmowers cause any kind of electric equipment, or gas-powered equipment causes noise, you know, and so on. So in the testing the waters kind of approach, one idea was, you know, would you be interested in having a little bit more quiet time? There are, incidentally, municipalities that have a day when, you know, no powered equipment is allowed. So my idea was that perhaps we could just make a modest adjustment to the existing noise code, which currently prohibits basically lawn equipment, landscaping equipment from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The wording is a little confusing because it starts with the evening during weekdays and 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekends and holidays. So my proposal is perhaps we could extend that slightly and have it be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends so that.
Could I interrupt? You mean
Yeah.
6 p.m. to 9 a.m., right? You don't mean 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That would be the daytime. You mean.
Right. I get confused because of the way that the wording is. So basically right now you can use equipment from 9 to 7 on weekends, right? And so what I'm saying is we could shorten the window slightly and have it be from 10 to 6 instead of from 9 to 7.
Yes.
So that, people could sleep in on the weekend before the noise begins and people could have, dinner gatherings or family gatherings in the evening and have things be a little bit more quiet. So, at the risk of complicating things, I'm essentially making two proposals. Another thing another question we got in the feedback is, who's going to be included? Is this going to be the same across the board? There may be a couple of special cases, but I wanted to say that for myself, at least, I think it's essential that the village be included in any kind of regulation, that we really have to set the standard. I wanted just to remind the rest of the village board that we pledged in May of 2018 to become a climate smart community. This touches on obviously other issues, but among others is the carbon footprint aspect of this. Finally, I'm not going to speak tonight to the things that the Conservation Advisory Council spoke of last fall in terms of the problems associated with leaf blowers. But given my personal interest, I did want to add one little piece, which is that leaf litter, although obviously you can't leave it on the lawn, there are a number of reasons why it's good to maintain some leaf litter on your property if you can. And one that a lot of people don't know about is because quite a number of butterflies and moths overwinter in leaf litter. And one example of that is the Luna moth, which has become increasingly unusual. So if you happen to have a walnut or a hickory or a sweet gum or a white birch in your yard, there could be a chance that you have a Luna moth overwintering in your leaf litter. This is another example, the eastern tiger swallowtail, which is more common around here, similarly. So that's it in terms of the presentation. I can unshare if I can figure out how to get back to Zoom here. Sorry. It sort of has me frozen in this. Let me see if I can do this.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right. So why don't you just recap, if you would, Nicole, what you're suggesting as a proposed set of regulations.
Okay, so my main proposal is that we put a seasonal restriction that would not allow gas-powered leaf blowers during the summer season. So roughly from the 15th of May to the 1st of October. So in other words, you would still be able to use electric leaf blowers in the summer, but the primary time when they're used is in the fall for the fall cleanup, and a little bit less so, but still in the spring for the spring cleanup. So in the fall and spring cleanup wouldn't change at all. What would be different is that during the summer, we would not have gas-powered leaf blowers, which are the loudest and the ones that are create the most air pollution.
And that scenario would allow electric leaf blowers either with a commercial landscape company or a private homeowner. Right.
So it's a pretty modest regulation. I mean, one of the reasons I'm proposing it is it's an issue that is where people are very divided, right? There are two kind of ends to the spectrum, and then a fair amount of people in between as well. And like I said, some people seem to experience the impact very differently, and it seems to affect people disproportionately. But a lot of people have written to us kind of at their wits' end. So this would do hopefully something to, address that issue, but it would still allow homeowners who have electric leaf blowers to, use them at their discretion. And landscape companies if they have electric blowers as well.
So a homeowner with an electric leaf blower in this scenario would not be affected. They would not be regulated. They could use their electric leaf blower as they wish. Is that your thought?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. But a homeowner or a professional landscape firm that has a gas powered blower would be subject to this regulation based on that time frame.
Correct.
Can I add something to that, Nicole?
Sure.
So feel free, Tom. Let me just say, we don't have a lot of time on this tonight, and it's my thought that we're going to convene another session to get a lot of feedback, but please go ahead.
Okay, just quickly speaking, the homeowner should be separate than the professional landscaper. One of the problems I know in my neighborhood is, and literally, I am one of 2 people that do my own lawn.
Mm-hmm.
And when the professional landscapers come in, they drive the biggest trucks, the biggest trailers. They dispense out of their machinery like it's D-Day. And the bad news is they're all over the place, all at once, all at the same time. And the noise is pretty loud. The good news is they're very fast and they're out of here almost as fast as they came in. The homeowner, such as myself, should not have a restriction on what I can use or when I can use it other than the quiet times that already exist in this town. So that's my point. I'm not saying I like noise. I'm not saying that this is good or bad. What I'm saying is the homeowner is not the problem. When I do my lawn in 10 minutes, I am done. But when all the professionals come in and they're the ones that are ruining it for everybody else. So if there needs to be some type of restrictions, I mean, they need to earn a living.
Right.
I hear you, Tom, and I sympathize as somebody who maintains my property as well to the best of my ability. I think Peter wants us to.
Well, just want to respond to that, which is that as a legal matter, we don't believe that we can establish a regulation that is based on who owns the leaf blower. So we cannot have a regulation that is different for a commercial gun for hire landscape firm than for someone who owns their own leaf blower. That is
right. Yeah, and I will just add to that there were a lot of people who were concerned about us singling out landscapers, which is not at all, our intention here. Although I hear what you're saying, there's a difference between a homeowner having 1 leaf blower and a landscape company having 4, right? But yeah, so there's a legal problem there. This is a balancing act. So the homeowners are also those who are, concerned about the impact that this is having on our lives. So trying to find a compromise that suits everyone to some degree.
I mean, I suppose it would be possible to regulate the number of leaf blowers and say a single leaf blower would be acceptable and 2 or 4 or whatever it is wouldn't be. So that's
one thing I've thought about is that there is a new generation of leaf blowers. There was, I took a picture at one point of one called the Hurricane, which I felt like pretty much sums it up. So there are these, like the lawnmowers that you drive, they're sort of the equivalent of that in leaf blowers. So I don't know, that's not for today, but that might be something to consider, is to at least limit the decibel level or the motor power of leaf blowers as well.
Excuse me, can I say one thing too, Peter and Nicole?
Sure,
this is Steve Cressito. As you know, I'm a objector. if I understand correctly, you want, including me, 50% of the people to get rid of their gas-powered leaf blower and purchase an electric, whether we can afford it or not. And by the way, the electric that I would have to buy to do the job is noisier than my gas-powered leaf blower. But that seems to be okay. I don't get it.
So
That part
how
of
much
it.
do you use your?
I
how much
use
do you
it
in
for
the summer.
I use it for 3 minutes after I cut my lawn to clean off the front path and driveway so I don't track all the debris into my house. Okay. And to be honest with you, I'm going to continue doing that no matter what you pass because there's no way to enforce the law. Okay. But honestly, the homeowner, as me, I have a quiet leaf blower. It's quieter than some of the electrics you can buy. Okay. It's used minimally all summer long. Yes, in the fall and spring, it's used like everyone else to do cleanup. Yes, in the fall, I leave leaves on my lawn and compost them with the lawnmower. Absolutely. But there are times when you just need it. It's one of the most useful tools to the homeowner. And I think you're letting things skew you. The Conservation Committee presented this presentation last year with all kinds of misinformation. You guys know it. You had to pull it out and reissue it. Okay. The presentations you gave at the library somehow had that same misinformation in it. So I think you're a little skewed and slanted, to be honest with you. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of riling up a point here, but it really bothers me that you're going about it the wrong way.
All right, so
You want it short, I'm done.
okay, thank you, Steve. And there, believe me, we're going to have a session for folks to comment on what Nicole has proposed as an alternative to what the CAC proposed. But following on a little bit to what Nicole already said, it is clear both in what we got back in the way of commentary and in the reports all of us get from all of you, friends, neighbors, people who talk to us. The issue of noise is central. The issue of allergens and pollutions and all of that is a part of the story, but the central issue for many folks is noise. And so that's a piece of it. And there isn't any question that there are a lot of people in the village of Pleasantville who are upset about noise. And there are a lot of people in the village of Pleasantville who feel as you do that nobody, certainly not us, should be restricting your use of any lawn equipment or that of a service you hire. So, we have the definition of a problem where we'll never make anybody happy with anything we do or don't do. There isn't any question about that. As you saw from the results of the survey, modest majority of people said, don't tread on me. In terms of the emails we got, a modest majority said this is out of control. And I can tell you that I myself have encountered circumstances quite a few times where some service arrives and it is absolutely deafening. 3 or 4 blowers, the guys are wearing the same ear protection they wear on airport tarmacs, and it is absolutely deafening. The argument Tom pointed out is the more of them they use at months, the faster they do it. But it's still, it's a tough environment. So clearly there's more discussion to be had. And as I mentioned, whatever we propose is going to upset folks depending on their viewpoint. But further to what Nicole proposed, and certainly in my view, I think probably all of our views, is that we'd like to avoid limiting the rights of an individual homeowner as much as we possibly can. But I also think that there are enough people in the community who are reasonably and responsibly upset by what happens when a small army of landscape folks arrive with these very loud devices. So my suggestion, we're about out of time before we move to our next subject. So this is recorded. It'll get put up available at pctv76.org. And folks who've heard this and have a viewpoint should invite folks to listen to what was said here. But I'm going to suggest that we schedule a Zoom meeting or a big chunk of our regular meeting in the coming weeks for this specific subject, because I know lots of people have opinions.
So Peter, this is Helen.
Hello, Helen.
Chair of the CAC, we have 3 minutes. I have 2 things to add to this, which is Greenberg did a study of 300 leaf blowers, and only 5 were under 50 decibels, which is their noise ordinance level, and they were all electric. Number 2, Sleepy Hollow, a neighbor of ours, has had a gas-powered leaf blower restriction throughout the summer since 2010. I want to leave those 2 things for everybody to think about. Thanks.
Newcastle, I know, has recently enacted one. I know that Tarrytown has one already in place. I think a majority of communities in Westchester have some sort of regulation. Is that true, Nicole? Is that your?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, I thank you, Nicole. I thank all of those who've commented. I know there are lots more comments to be had. Be reminded that we have an email specific to this subject, leafblowers@pleasantville-ny.gov. And anything that comes there gets assembled and sent to all of us. So that's a good way to comment in the meantime. But keep an eye on our agenda, and we'll send out a note as well as communicate as widely as we can when we'll have a sort of clearinghouse discussion and invite lots of people to weigh in. All right, thank you. Next subject on our agenda is the south end of Memorial Plaza project. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, this is our website, pleasantville-ny.gov. Go into projects and initiatives, upcoming work to the south end of Memorial Plaza. Included in this is click here for a layout of the project, and here is what you see. So I just wanted to lay out a few points of this because folks were understandably confused, and there's been some discussion of this on social media, some of which misunderstood what we're trying to do. So here's our story. This is the section of Memorial Plaza between Bedford Road and the gazebo. This project is not part of the Civic Space project, and it is not generated by the proposed pedestrian improvement project on Manville Road. The reason we're talking about this project is twofold. One is here on Bedford Road, we've got an active and successful business at Project Taco. We've got all the stores and restaurants down Bedford Road where there's no parking on this side of the street. And this end of Memorial Plaza has gotten increasingly busy. Here we're in an environment for the last pandemic 15 months or whatever it is, where the north end of Memorial Plaza, closer to the train overpass, has been comparatively quiet. And on most days, the south end has been pretty busy. And at peak times, farm market, whatever it might be, we have lots of folks kind of waiting in the drive aisle. They see somebody's taillights, or they see someone headed for the car, and they're waiting to see someone back out in what are currently perpendicular spaces, as you are aware right here, instead of the angled spaces we propose. And on this side of the street, this is the post office side of the street. At the moment, because of the construction barricades, you can't park here at all, but these are parallel spaces along this side. Right here in this location is the bus stop, where the Beeline bus stops, and also the Pace bus. So here's what we have proposed to do. Some of this is driven by the fact that as the big project that's under construction right here, 70 Memorial, makes its way through to completion, we will end up with a new pedestrian walkway alongside that project on their property that connects Memorial Plaza with Cooley Street and the area down by Key Food. Used to be we would snake our way back past the post office trucks and through the parking lot to get back there. We will now have a permanent public easement to cross what's going to be a quite nice landscaped walkway lit at night that's actually on the property of 70 Memorial, but will come out at this point. Our intention then is to set up a crosswalk across Memorial Plaza here. instead of the current crosswalk is over here. We've got this curb cut so that you can go in and out of the commuter side of Memorial Plaza. That's been working great. Its relationship to the crosswalk isn't so great. So here's the idea. Move the crosswalk over to this side of the gazebo. That's the Bedford Road side of the gazebo. Jeff has drawn up a proposed change here that would change the sidewalks around here, move the stairs, which are currently essentially discharging you from the gazebo into the street, over to this side so you could come down from the gazebo to the crosswalk, add a sidewalk around here, and then we propose to move the Beeline bus stop right here. In the path of traffic in Memorial Plaza, Beeline bus comes not very many times a day, and when it stops, it literally stops for 30 seconds. And so rather than giving up all the space over here, the Beeline bus would stop here, and the gazebo would actually become a weather-protected place for folks to sit and wait for the bus. You can sit for the at the gazebo or stand at the gazebo, come down the stairs now on this side, and here's your bus stop. If we take this center median and reduce it to 5 feet in width instead of the current 8, that buys us enough space to convert to these angled spaces on both sides of the street, instead of the current perpendicular spaces against the median and parallel spaces against the curb. That buys us additional spaces over here, in part because we've moved the bus stop and are not giving up this space. And it also makes it easier to get in and out from the standpoint of a driver. And it also means that doubtless somebody will try to do it, but for the most part, instead of having folks who are backing out of a perpendicular space across this lane of traffic and then across this lane with the intent of turning around and going to Bedford Road, they'll be already in an angled space and will need to back out and go out this way. Minor inconvenience in exchange for easier in and out and less moments when the car is backing out, seize up traffic on both sides of the street. And then add to that, we will have significantly improved the availability of in and out, stop, pick up, take out, whatever it might be at this end of the plaza. We propose down here to add a walkway over here that doesn't exist now. As you may recall, this curves in here a bit. This gives us a chance to add more greenery. The downside to this is that this 5-foot wide median cannot support trees. Two things to be said. One is the trees that are here suffer badly because it's an extremely difficult place for trees. We currently have lindens there that are in the midst of slowly girdling their roots and slowly dying off, and we periodically have to take them all out and put in new ones. This means we would lose those trees, but we've hatched a plan here and are working with our landscape architect, Wagner Hodgson, to determine how we can add a tree back here in this location, recognizing that almost anything we plant in here isn't going to survive. So as part of this project, mostly completed by our own guys under Jeff's direction, we would make most of these changes and replace these sidewalks over a period of time in the course of the next few months. What happens over here will ultimately need to wait until this project is closer to done. But what you see here is the long-term plan we have in mind. A bunch of folks were saying, oh, well, this must be because there won't be enough parking for 70 Memorial, this new building here. Beyond not true. 70 Memorial has 3 levels of parking below it, providing more parking by a goodly margin than our zoning or any reasonable expectations suggest. Be reminded that all of the traffic for 70 Memorial comes in and out on Cooley Street, none of it on Memorial Plaza. And at the developer's expense, Cooley Street will be pushed through as a 2-way through street, which will also take some pressure off Memorial Plaza. Currently, either you get from Bedford to Manville or vice versa through Memorial Plaza, or you go all the way out and around Pleasantville Ford to come back. When 70 Memorial is finished and this project is done, you'll also have a route between Bedford and Manville here on Cooley Street. So we feel as though it's a good compromise all in. Nobody is thrilled with losing trees, but nobody candidly believes these trees are long for this world. It's kind of a constant effort of replacing the trees as they die off in this difficult environment. And we think that the pedestrian improvements, the advantages now providing a much better environment for the gazebo, and the additional tree here, as well as plantings over here, mitigate that problem. So have I got that all right? Jeff, Eric, anything to add to that?
You did a good job, Peter. Down again at the south end, we're also looking at putting 2 trees down there.
In this
So,
zone?
in that area. So, there's 5 lindens. We're putting 3 back. I'm trying to find, another space here and there. I'm trying to get a net balance or, as close as we can. But right now we're, 3 trees to be replaced at this juncture.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we looked at in the course of this was, okay, we need to buy 3 more feet in order to make possible the angled parking on both sides here. Another way to do it is move the whole thing over and take 3 feet off this green space. We felt like that was a bad solution, that we really ought to preserve this buffer against the railroad track cut. And we also think there are some opportunities to add some additional trees in this zone over time, and that's already, as you well know, a place where there are a bunch of big trees already. Folks were concerned about the big tree that's here. That is untouched by this project. The only thing that happens at this end is that the green space gets a bit bigger. So that's the lay of the land. If anybody has any question, any board members had a question? Anybody else?
Yes, Peter, I have a comment to make.
Yes, Tom.
On the changing the angle of the parking spaces, on that type of parking, they're typically either a 60-degree or a 45-degree angle. Am I assuming that these will be a 45-degree angle?
Jeff, you want to comment?
Tom, yes, they are 45s.
And that being said, if you look in the standards, an average length of a car is 17 feet. So if you have a car at 17 feet at an angle, it's probably going to come out around 12 feet on each side. And if you're only picking up 3 feet extra in the island that you're going to shorten, that barely leaves enough room for two-way traffic safely to pass through Memorial Plaza.
The travel lanes are 16-foot travel lanes each direction. We've laid them out with, using CAD design. Actually, we will have more room than we do on Wheeler Avenue, and we won't have the parallel parking that we do on Wheeler, so it'll be a little easier backing out. I went out there with one of our larger, it wasn't the pickup truck, but one of the bigger vehicles, and we did a temporary layout, and it worked.
I like to see the plan, if possible.
Sure. Jeff has this all written, all set up in AutoCAD. So
You're more than welcome to come down to the office, and I'll show you the CAD drawing.
Okay, thank you.
all right.
And just for an update, Peter, all the electric for the lighting on the railroad side is installed. All the conduits, the footings are in and ready to be poured. Weather permitting, tomorrow we'll be going across the parking lot and by the end of the week, we'll have 90% of the electric conduit in place.
Great. So also part and parcel of this new conduit is providing conduit if we elected to put a Muni meter, either a pay and display or one of the gizmos where you type in your license plate number and don't have to return with a chip for your dashboard in several locations around the plaza. Part of that is anticipating the likelihood that our demand for permit parking may be different post-pandemic. And as a result, the idea of a pay and display unit in several places may make it more convenient and more flexible for those purposes. And Jeff has also anticipated the likelihood that at some point we will need charging stations and has identified how that could be achieved. So we're also putting new and ADA compliant sidewalks all along on the train track side so that we'll be addressing some of the cracked and heaving sidewalk on that side and have a much better pedestrian condition there as well. So quite a bit of work. So Helen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, thank you. I did talk to Eric Morrissey last week a little bit about this project, and obviously my first concern was about the tree removal, and I was assured that trees were going in. But one idea was to add some bump outs to where you might lose a spot or turn it into a motorbike spot and have a designated tree pit to provide shade. But I also was thinking that, sorry, that's my garage door. I was also thinking another idea might be to put up carports over those new spaces. So start in that new median and put carports with solar panels on. So those would be premium spots with shade, and we would have solar power because there'd be no tree coverage blocking that.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
Just wanted to mention that. Thank you very much. I think it's a fabulous idea to change the orientation of the stuff, and the pedestrians would be safer. Thanks.
Well, that's an interesting idea, Helen. Thank you for that.
Right. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Anybody else on this subject? We're slightly behind schedule, but not much. All right. Next item, Eric, if discussion about the request from 70 Memorial to extend the license agreement for Memorial Plaza parking spaces.
Sure. So we're talking about the parallel spaces that are currently taken up by the 70 Memorial project. As everybody knows, they're putting up steel. They're still ways away from giving back those spaces. We currently have a license agreement in place that can be extended by the mayor or the board. They do pay every month for those spaces that they take up. They request an extension of 12 months. Would recommend that we provide or extend a license agreement for 6 months. I should point out it's a revocable license agreement, so we can require that those spaces be given back to us with some advance notice. But obviously it does provide a buffer and some public safety while the project continues. So if the board and the mayor are agreeable to extending that license agreement 6 months, that is the question.
So I certainly am. I mean, we're in the fortunate circumstance with a lower demand for parking to be able to say yes to that perhaps more easily than might have been the case pre-pandemic, but I think it's fine. Anybody agree, disagree, have another view?
Sounds fine.
All right,
Sounds good.
let her rip.
All right.
So Eric, we're a little behind schedule. We can come back to the update on HVAC.
Okay.
Let's jump to update on the marijuana legalization and the ARPA money. A few things to be said. I was last week at the New York Conference of Mayors annual meeting and attended a bunch of sessions on both of these subjects, as well as talked to a whole lot of people in our neck of the woods, but also across the state. So as we have said before, marijuana has been legalized, subject to certain limits by the state, and that is already the case as it stands right now. The state will be standing up some new regulatory commissions to manage the licensing for dispensaries and places that would provide opportunities for on-site consumption of cannabis products. And it is expected at the moment that the earliest there might actually be a licensed dispensary under this program is likely the end of 2022 or even very possibly into 2023. So what the state has left every municipality with is the opportunity to opt out, if it so chooses, from having a retail dispensary and or having on-site consumption spaces. And the way the rule works is that communities have until December 31 to pass such a local law. If they choose to opt out, if they take no action by December 31, they're automatically opted in. And if you don't opt out by December 31 of this year, a community can then never opt out in the future. If we do opt in by December 31 of this year, we can, if we opt out by December 31, we can opt in at some point in the future if the viewpoint on that were to change. Couple of other pieces attached to that, one of which is that if the village were to opt out and a 20% of the electors, as it's called, were to sign a petition within 30 days of that action, that could force a public referendum. And so the issue of the timing of all of this is the subject of quite a bit of conversation. I can assure you, quite a bit of conversation at the New York Conference of Mayors meeting, in part because not all of us are on the same election schedule. So as you may have read, indeed, I think there was an article in the Examiner focused on North Castle. They were looking to opt out very quickly in order to provide enough time for a potential challenge to the opt-out to be petitioned and then follow all the required timing to allow that referendum to appear on the November ballot. In our case, our village elections are normally in March. In fact, this coming March of 2022, would normally be an off year when we don't have an election, although there remains the possibility that we would. But for villages that normally have March elections, the last shot has not been fired in this discussion, but it would appear likely that it would be logical for any potential referendum to occur on that schedule in March of 2022, as opposed to the hypothetical where a village matter would want to be on the ballot in November. There are a whole series of logistical problems attached to the question of how, for example, the Board of Elections could manage the business of a referendum that is available only to village voters at voting places that are not specific to the village. So at any rate, long story short, having nothing to do with the question of whether we should or shouldn't do this, it may be appropriate that we don't actually take this action until late in the year, so that the community, if it were to seek a petition referendum opposed to the decision made, would do so in January, and the matter would be in a village election in March. So I say that as what appears to be the case and what I took away from quite a few discussions, including with the NICOM Council, but there may be a different view of that. So at any rate, what I mean to leave you with is that it doesn't appear that we are under any particularly great pressure to act on this anytime soon, which is different from saying we shouldn't join the conversation, because we certainly should. But I think we have plenty of time to do it. I've talked to the folks from Pleasantville Strong, and I know they have strong opinions on this subject, and we'll make a presentation on that subject. I can tell you in conversations with folks across this state, not everybody is in the position you might imagine, and there are plenty of communities that say we are definitely going to stay in, as well as communities that say we think we're going to opt out because we're not sure, as well as communities that say we think we're going to opt out and would never consider it again because we don't want to be a party to it. So there are a bunch of philosophical as well as practical issues to take into account, including the question of whether in a community as small as ours, our legal right to control the time and place, so to speak, which we're allowed to control in our zoning law, would give us reasonable places for this kind of business to be established. So here's my thought, and I ask my colleagues on the board to weigh in on the subject. It would appear likely that we might arrive at a decision on this in conversation way before the end of the year, but it would appear likely that as a procedural matter, it's probably best to act on it late in the year, which gives us quite a bit of time. So my thought is that we have a community sort of open house Zoom call, perhaps sometime in the next several weeks, get people's initial comment, and then re-engage the issue in a more formal way in the fall. Folks from Pleasantville Strong putting together a presentation to the community. They have already provided us with quite a stack of stuff, which I think most of us have read through. And as you might imagine, anecdotal reports, discussions with people, is that not everybody agrees. So any comments from my colleagues about how to proceed?
I guess my only thought is, could we have a less public way for people to weigh in, since this is something that an issue where a lot of people don't feel comfortable expressing their views in public?
Sure. I mean, one of the things we could do is establish an email like we have done for some other subjects, but I caution folks that any communication they make with us is subject to FOIL. And so,
Of course, yeah.
although we're not publishing the email we get, they are a public record. So, but I think that's a good idea for sure.
So Peter, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So just to clarify that I understand it correctly, the reason that you feel like we don't have to decide quickly is because of our village election calendar, so we have time for a permissive referendum. Because I think that some of the other municipalities have been moving it up faster so that they had time before November election. Is that right?
That is right. So the issue is, once we pass a local law, there's a 30-day period where community members who disagreed with it could circulate a petition, and if they get the required number of signatures, force a referendum. That referendum has to happen within a time frame which is roughly 60 days. So if those 60 days align with some regular election, it's obviously convenient and cost effective to have it on the agenda in order to line up with that. So in our case, a village election wouldn't take place until March. And as I already mentioned, it might be that we have one, it might be that we don't. But if we were to do this sooner, it would likely require a special election of some kind. There is certainly some unclarity at the moment about who would run that, and whether the Board of Elections, which typically runs our elections, would run such a special referendum, how it would work, and also some unclarity about who would pay for it. But I do think, since, I mean, it is without question clear that a proposed permissive referendum, if one ever to arise in March, is well before there would even be the possibility of someone applying to have such a business in the village of Pleasantville. There's no harm in waiting. So it may be that other lawyers are going to weigh in on this subject. That was what I took away with the discussion at NICOM. As you can imagine, there are places in New York State that have March elections, places that have June elections, and places that have November elections, and cities and villages have some different rules surrounding all of that. So,
Peter, let me understand, does that permissive referendum work both ways? If the village opts in or doesn't opt out, can you circulate a permissive referendum to opt us out?
I don't know the answer to that. That question came up today as well, and I'll get the answer to it.
And do you know roughly how many 20% for Pleasantville would be? How many voters that is?
I mean, there's a very clear definition in the law. It's quite a few. It wouldn't be an easy lift to get that many, but we can find that out. I don't want to throw out a number and be wrong.
Okay, I was just curious.
I mean,
That number got kicked around at all.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, honestly, it is my hope, although obviously no certainty, that whatever discussion we have in the coming weeks and months would arrive at enough of a consensus that folks who agreed or disagreed, and there will be folks who agree or disagree, whichever way this goes, would understand where it came from. But obviously, folks have the right of that permissive referendum, and we have a responsibility to preserve that.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make kind of follow up on Jonathan's point?
Sure.
Shane McGaffey, 75 Broadway, apartment 2K, if we need it for the record. Following up on Jonathan's point, my concern would be if you guys decided to opt in and had a vote and you had it late, that if there was a referendum that happened after December 31st, that we couldn't opt out because we missed the deadline.
So I don't think that that is the case. As I said to Jonathan, I don't know, and we will find out for sure whether there can be a permissive referendum against a decision to stay in, which the question there is, can you have a permissive referendum against a board action that didn't actually involve an action, but instead inaction, right? Because if we don't enact a local law, the state law prevails. So I'll find out the answer to that.
Okay, I mean, because, I mean, you know what my position is, that basically we want to wait until we know what the regulations are. We don't feel that there's enough information to make a decision. So to me, it makes sense to opt out until we know what the regulations are, and then make an informed decision once we actually know, you know.
You made that point, and obviously you.
But not publicly, yeah.
Yeah, you'll make that point in the presentation that Pleasantville Strong will make. I mean, just to be clear, Shane is not only a school board member, but also the current chair of Pleasantville Strong. Have at it. We will definitely want to hear from you.
Could I ask, to your point, Nicole, about anonymity, if you could help me understand why on this issue specifically you would want more, want an anonymous route? I guess I'm just trying to understand why people wouldn't.
Yeah, so this issue came up last time the state threatened to legalize marijuana, and we held a public meeting at that time. I personally was not particularly keen on the legalization process, and I will just say for the record, from what I know right now, I'm more comfortable with opting out. I would like to do some additional research, but one of the I had a lot of people come up to me and say, no way am I going to attend a meeting like that and express what my real views are, because for people who were in favor of legalization, because they were afraid of being, viewed a certain way or branded a certain way in a community where, people know each other. So that was just my concern. I always, on any given issue, I want to hear kind of the full spectrum of what people have to say. Sometimes people raise issues that wouldn't have occurred to me at all. And so that was why I just, it occurred to me that, I want to hear what people have to say.
Okay.
The just to be clear, David or Michael, the meeting that they had, there were some pretty aggressive folks there against the legalization process, and it created a bit of it's very intimidating in the room when it's like that to actually want to get up to the podium and say something where you're going to get booed or people are going to be sneering at you. So it takes a brave soul to enter the water, and I don't think that room and that meeting truly represented the entire perspective of the village, which is why anonymity is tough, but certainly I think there's a rationale for it here, because there's also a stigma for saying I disagree.
Yeah, so absolutely true, John.
It was in the olden days when we actually met in person.
That is true.
That's called the before times.
Yeah. So I think, what is clear, and it was just, I had a lot of very interesting conversations with folks from across the state over the last couple of days. The situation we confront here in Pleasantville is that marijuana has been legalized here in New York State. It has been legalized in, I think, 16? Maybe it's more than that, certainly 16 states, including the states that surround us. So the question ultimately is not whether folks have a legal right to use marijuana, but the question is, will they be able to buy it here in Pleasantville, New York? You can say there's clearly no certainty that anyone would elect to open a dispensary here in Pleasantville. I can tell you a little more sense in the course of my conversations of the last week that it will be a pretty expensive venture to become licensed and open a dispensary. And so the guess at the moment is that they are most likely to open up when in places that have plenty of foot traffic and a likely pretty big customer base. Not clear that we would ring that bell, but by the same token, we certainly shouldn't stay in the belief that that nobody would want to do it here and therefore we don't have to think about it, because we do. So, but as Jonathan and Nicole already said, yeah.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you consider doing a survey like you did for the leaf blower question or the pool to see, because then people might feel more comfortable, filling out a survey and filling in how they actually feel about whether they would be in favor of opting out?
Sure.
Obviously, if we choose to opt in, we don't have to do anything. But if we want to opt out, I mean, to me, it seems like it can't hurt to start that process and do that so that we can take our time and make a decision and have the conversation and maybe do a survey and find out how people really feel before deciding that we want to opt in. It seems like it wouldn't hurt to opt out for the time being until the data can be collected and people's feelings can actually be
and I mean, that point's certainly been made. What's the hit associated with opting out when you can always opt in again? And perhaps the answer to that is there isn't one.
Exactly. And the opposite is not true. So if we miss the deadline for some reason and we're opted in automatically, it would be helpful to just make sure we can make an informed decision. And then if we choose to opt in as a community, we could do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, all true. I agree with everything you said. But I will also add to that, and we need to move on to our regular meeting. But it is clear that there will be lots of communities in Westchester that will not opt out. And therefore, there will be marijuana dispensaries and on-site consumption places in Westchester. So that is either an argument for or against what we would do in Pleasantville. Probably it's both, depending on one's viewpoint. But there is no question there will be quite a number of communities that will not opt out. So stay tuned.
Hey, it's Laura Moore.
Hey, Laura.
And I know I'm not gonna beat the drum too loud today because I'm sure you'll be sick of me by the time this is all said and done if you're not sick of me already. But I just wanted to, back up there with Angela and Shane both said now that they need it for me, but obviously, as a mom, as a resident, as the coalition coordinator for Pleasantville Strong, pretty clear my position is going to be to opt out at a minimum for now until we know more. But I just want to share with everybody that the other kind of piece for me in terms of that decision is, and I've shared this is not novel news, I've shared this with Peter already, is that we don't know yet what the state will or won't say regarding those guidelines. That includes marketing, that includes safety and security around the dispensaries and the consumable lounges, all those pieces of information that we don't have yet. And I certainly think it's hard to make a decision. I'm a health educator for a long time, and I always kind of refer back to my roots of the hospital and I say you wouldn't sign a blank informed consent, and you certainly wouldn't sign a blank check. So I don't see why you would sign on to something that we don't quite have all the details for yet. I'll give you all my spiel later about the developing brain and the normalization and how we can educate teens. We'll save that for later, but I just wanted to put that point in that I think it is important that we have more details.
You will have all the time you need to make whatever presentation you want to make. Really, the issue for us about that is what aspects of the Cannabis Control Commission regulations that are yet to be determined would affect the question of whether we opt in or out. And there's a difference of opinion on that statewide, I can assure you. So that's a worthy discussion too. So I will say, if we're successful in making this a reasonable conversation among reasonable people on all sides of the issue, we'll get to the finish line in a way that I think makes for a strong decision that folks in general can support. So. All right.
Peter, can I just?
Yes, Mary.
All right, just two things. First of all, I think having a conversation this early is great. So thank you for bringing it up because you're bringing awareness to it. We know at our coalition meetings and speaking with parents, many people just aren't aware, doesn't understand how it works. So this is a great step in that direction, bringing awareness. The second point is, if you remember back in the day when Pleasantville Strong were advocating up in Albany about this, we really pushed for that unique feature of the local opt-in issue. So we're glad that it's here. We're glad that it's a local community's choice, particularly one this a size, 1.7 square miles, where we're a walkable community. You walk past all the houses of worship, the 3 schools, all the rites of passage, the arts, the theater places, the after-school religious activities where all our children work. It is a very unique and special community. And the current legislation allows for our community to voice its uniqueness in that decision-making, very different than much larger places. So that's a plus about having the ability to make a choice as a local community. And we were glad that was part of the legislation.
Yeah, I think we were too. New York Council of Mayors lobbied for that as well. As you recall, the last time this was proposed, it was a county opt-out level, not a local, which substantially reduced the likelihood of an actual opt-out. So that's, good news. I also think that this conversation in the coming months, I came back from NICOM pleased and relieved by the idea that we probably should take more time because of the election schedule. And again, next week I may have a different story if other election specialists weigh in, but that's the answer right now. And one of the pieces I think that's going to be useful for everybody who engages the discussion is also to recognize this is happening. Whether it happens here or not is the question we confront, but it is definitely happening, and it's going to happen in places all around us. And that's important for folks of every age to know, including parents thinking about their lives and all of the above. So,
can I just add to that? Hi, everybody. My name is Danielle Cayley. I'm a parent, PTA, I'm Pleasantville Strong. And I just wanted to, Mary, thank you for saying that, because that's what I was thinking. I wasn't going to talk, I wasn't going to come on. But one of the things, Peter, when you said about communities, that there are many municipalities and towns that are opting in, I just feel like we're very unique here in Pleasantville, where I have 2 daughters, one in 8th grade, one in 3rd, one who's been walking the village with her friends from, middle school. And that's something really special about our community, that our children, we feel they're really out there. It's not like we're, a community where there are shopping malls and we're spaced out. We're a really small community where our children are really, our kids are out there, and it's the beautiful thing about why we choose to be here, that we have that uniqueness. So I hope that when we make that decision, we factor that in, that obviously I could say I'm as Pleasantville Strong, I think we should opt out and see what happens. But thank you, Mary, for saying that, because that's how I feel. There's something really, there's a close-knit community here, and the fact that our children, it's visible. Everything is very visible to them here, more so than a lot of other communities. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that, Danielle. All right, we need to put a pin in this until next time and move to our regular meeting. So thank you for all of those comments. And we will depart our regular session. I'll leave a brief pause and then we'll begin our regular meeting.